recognizing that we are in a position where we're going to talk a lot about public investments today, I think this is the perfect example of what that public service looks like, despite the fact that, again, one of the executive leaders who will be signing our legislation today is also proposing drastic cuts to our public transit agency. And I think it's an important reminder all of this is intersectional, because more often than not, we just think libraries live in silos, our schools live in silos, but this is what connects us. So I just want to know if we're here to say RIPTA. Yeah! Thank you so much, and best believe, as we get started with the program, I will make sure to make that direct reference that we can't talk about accessibility and the freedom to read unless our neighbors actually have the mobility to go to the library. And that's what y'all been doing on the front line. So again, really appreciate y'all being here. Thank you. I hope at some point y'all are going to join us as well for the celebration and let the governor know. Again, all these issues are intersectional. And I would also argue that the mayor of the capital city also has a responsibility to actively advocate for it.
Yeah, he does. Yeah, he does.
Appreciate y'all. Thank you all so much. Hey, y'all. Yes, creo que el verano les va bien.
Ay, muchas gracias por venir.
There you go. Oh, you started all rip the friends? Hello.
Tens of thousands of Rhode who won't have access to libraries and schools.
I'm going to talk to you after I get done with this thing.
Okay.
We're your constituents. And we ride the bus.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is very exciting. It's standing room only. It's a little crowded, but thank you. So good afternoon and welcome to this very exciting event, the signing of Rhode Island's 2025 Freedom to Read Bill. My name is Cheryl Space. I'm the director of the Community Libraries of Providence, which includes this library, the Rochambeau Library. I'm going to do some thank yous now, so please forgive me. I want to thank you, Governor McKee, for signing this bill into law and for making this ceremonial signing possible. This really gives us all a really special moment. Senate President Lawson and Speaker Shakarchi for your leadership in bringing this legislation to fruition. Speaker, I do apologize, but I also find it a little funny that you had to shush the librarians on the day of the House. That was not lost on us. We got a wee bit excited. Also, I need to thank from the bottom of all of our hearts Senator McKinney and Representative Morales, who are right here. First of all, your time, your fierce advocacy, and your investment in crafting and building support for this important piece of legislation. And it's not just this year, it's multiple years. And to all of our Rhode Island legislators who supported the freedom to read and voted for the passage of this bill, thank you. I have to also call out Representative Jennifer Stewart's here. She was one of our early sponsors and supporters. Thank you to Representative Cotter, another sponsor, and in the great city of Providence, so thank you, Mayor Smiley, for supporting our public libraries. And I saw Councilors Vargas and Councilor Anderbois here. Thank you both for being here as well. And I need to thank, it goes without saying that we need to thank our Chief of Library Services for the state of Rhode Island, Karen Miller, for your tireless work on this. Finally, thank you to all of our partners in the Freedom to Read Coalition who worked tirelessly to build a wave of Rhode Islanders around this cause through testifying, tabling, creating artwork, researching, drafting policy tools. Many of you came out of your comfort zone to come forward, and we are all so grateful. Members of the coalition including authors, illustrators, librarians, lawyers, teachers, religious and other ally organizations, industry partners, and especially our youth, some of whom are here today. Please stand up and let us take a moment to thank and acknowledge you. If you are part of the Freedom to Read Coalition, please stand up and be acknowledged. Today is a celebration for all Rhode Islanders. Your stories, your history, your identity matter, and they will be written, illustrated, taught, and made available to you across our small but mighty state. Your freedom to express and encounter ideas is protected in Rhode Island. As Laura Benitez, State Policy Manager at PEN America said, Rhode Island's Freedom to Read Act is the strongest of any freedom to read law enacted to date. We applaud the advocates and legislators who brought this legislation to fruition and Governor McKee for signing it into law. So with that, welcome, and please welcome Governor McKee to the podium.
I'm happy to be here with, of course, the speakers and the president, Representative Morales, along with Senator McKinney, who sponsored the legislation I'm about ready to sign, along with Mayor Smiley. As a former mayor myself, I know that our library in my hometown of Cumberland is really important to our community. And I recall, years ago, Larry Berman may recall too, being a Cumberland resident, I had a great deal to do with the expansion of that library. And I do support libraries, and as a mayor, continue to support that local library, and now as governor, understand the importance of a library to a community, having had that firsthand experience. So I'm happy to be here with the Freedom to Read Coalition, along with Caramella, who's the state's own chief library of library services. Karen, you around here somewhere? Yeah. So public libraries are places where you can find yourself and other people's words, and the differing experiences and worldviews captured in books and literature are as varied and interesting as each individual who is browsing the shelves. In Rhode Island, we promote free expression. We don't restrict it. And in Rhode Island, we see censorship for what it is, a way to limit what you can learn about the world and about each other. The Freedom to Read Act is, at its core, the protection against censorship. And Rhode Island is not alone. California, Connecticut, Illinois, Maryland, Minnesota, New Jersey, Oregon, and Washington are all states that have a form of a Freedom to Read Act. I think more states will follow our lead. For our children, reading can open up new worlds. My wife Susan was a career teacher, and her expertise was in reading. And she taught young people how to read for her career in teaching. And one of our very best friends was a librarian as well in our Cumberland School District. So we know how important it is to provide the opportunity for young people, and in that case, everyone that lives in a community, to be able to read, open up their minds. So let's protect our libraries and the librarians who help keep the doors open. So thank you so much for having me here today. I look forward to signing the bill, and now I'd like to turn the microphone over to our speaker, Joe Sikachi.
Thank you, Governor. It's a pleasure to be here. It's exciting. And we're very lucky because we're indoors today, so that's a good thing. So Cheryl, before I get started, I want to tell you the irony was not lost on me, because I don't want to tell you, it was like my get even moment. How many times was I shushed at the library? So it was nice to say that to the librarians, and it did not go unnoticed, so thank you. It's exciting to be here because this is a critical and important piece of legislation, and I really want to talk about my colleagues in the House for a minute. I want to start with Jen Stewart, of course, who originally came up with this great idea, working with Representative Morales. Megan Cotto had to leave for another appointment as well. David Bennett, who's here as well, all of us working together collaboratively. And it's not easy. It wasn't easy to get together, it wasn't easy to do this. And this bill has been around for 2 years. And I remember when Representative Morales came to me, and so did Senator McKinney, my good friend from Warwick, and they wanted the bill last year, and I said, it's not ready. And I said, look, it needs some work. It's a good bill. I support the concept. I said it like 3 or 4 times because he kept asking. I said it publicly in the newspaper and in the press. With Kathy Gregg's around here somewhere. She could look up the quotes, and I said that. But so I said, David, you have my commitment. I will pass this bill next year. So the very first week of session, David comes to see me. He doesn't have the original bill, which is about 5 pages. He's got the new bill, which is about 55 pages. So he says, Speaker, you committed to pass this. I said, David, I committed to pass last year's bill. This is much different. But through hard work and negotiation, we got there. And I'm proud of the work product at the end. I normally don't, and I should do it more, but I normally don't recognize staff, and she's not here today, so it's easy for me to talk about hers. But my chief legal counsel, Nicole McCartney, who worked at least 80 hours on this with Representative Morales, did research, looked around at other states, and we looked at primarily as a model New Jersey, but we came up with, in all of the states that the governor listed that had passed it, came up with the best freedom to read law in the country. I'm proud of this, and I'm proud of the hard work. And what is it? What is it? Freedom to reason is freedom to think. It's freedom to express yourself, to open your mind. How can anybody want to restrict that or censor that? To me, it's a core principle of our democracy. And I'm proud of that. I'm proud of all the work that went in here. And I want to say just thank you. Thank you, all of you in this room. And I look around this room and I see people from my hometown of Warwick, and I see people who are of every age group, because that's what libraries are. They're a place to come together, to express, to think, to challenge yourself, challenge your mind, but do it in a community setting, free from interference and censorship. And that's what democracy is all about. I want to say that, as we all know, nobody can do anything alone. It takes all of us working collaboratively together. And that's why this bill passed the Senate as well. It gives me great pleasure to call up my good friend, the Senate President, Val Lawson from East Providence, who's an educator in her own volition, and I know she supports the concept and the bill itself. Senator Lawson.
It's such a pleasure to join you today to celebrate this important legislation. And as the governor mentioned, the speaker mentioned, libraries are much more than repositories for books. They're sanctuaries for intellectual freedom. It's where we get to voice our different viewpoints, grapple with ideas. And we know recently across our nation, even here in Rhode Island, we've seen unprecedented political pressure, right? Books being challenged, removed, all of those things because some people dislike the message. Well, this groundbreaking legislation protects libraries and censorship, and that's so important today. And it also gives librarians and authors support. Right? No longer here in Rhode Island do we have to worry about books being removed because of political motivations and background. And as the speaker mentioned, I am a former educator, a history teacher. And it's that much more important for me because I know from that perspective what that means. And I want to thank all of the advocates and everyone here who made this happen today. First of all, I want to elevate Chairman McKinney, who was our champion in the Senate and worked on this for the past couple of years. And I also think it's important to note that his work with libraries extends before this bill, actually, and he's been vested for a long time. So thank you, Chairman. I know I speak on behalf of the entire Senate. Thank you for your leadership on this. And I'd also like to take a moment to thank Representative Morales, the Speaker, and the Governor. So it's great to be here today and celebrate a win that's so important, not just here in Rhode Island, but across the nation. And on that note, I will introduce your House sponsor, Representative Morales.
neighbors, as we gather here today, I want us to take a moment to reflect on the broad coalition and the collective grassroots effort that brings us here. You see, it was the sense of urgency that arose from public and school librarians, educators, students, youth leaders, faith leaders, and local authors that recognized that we are at a moment in history where there are unprecedented censorship efforts being posed against trends related to racial justice, related to immigration rights, related to LGBTQ plus community members. And instead of backing down or feeling intimidated by some of the attacks at the federal level, and some of those that have in fact happened right here in our backyard, we took the initiative. We took the initiative to gather grassroots organizers, be able to sit down and have a conversation as to how do we authentically protect our students, our library patrons, our frontline staff that are staffing the libraries day in and day out. And that became the Freedom to Read Act. And it was through discussions with legislative sponsors like Jennifer Stewart, House Speaker Shikarchi, Representative David Bennett, that we were able to build a broad coalition to say that all of our neighbors deserve the freedom to read, the freedom of expression, the freedom to be true to who they are without the guilt, without the intimidation, without the concern that one is going to be judged or have their freedom stripped away through censorship. It was local authors like Kathy Johnson and her novel, The Breakaways, that talked about teamwork and diversity, that sparked certain levels of outrage, but yet and still it told a powerful message that our young people deserve to see and read and feel. And so this did not happen overnight. It was a multi-year effort, and it was one that resulted in what is the most comprehensive freedom to read legislation in the country, because it incorporates private right to action for our hard-working authors. It recognizes the rights of our school librarians to be able to engage in the work and curate library collections without the concern that one voice can come in yelling and dictate what everyone else would have access to. So as we look ahead, it's important that we recognize that we have made progress to protect the freedom to read, to protect access to literature. But now it's about expanding that access. And that looks like making sure that across our state, every public school is entitled to a public library. It is about making sure that every neighborhood has a library that's open until 8 p.m. and on the weekends. It's about making sure that our neighbors can have access to the library through the means of public transportation. I say all this because public libraries are a public good. They are our local town squares, especially for working people and families and students. Community libraries is where neighbors gather together, because not all of us have access to a recreation center. Not all of us can afford to pay for a cup of coffee to get out of the house. But what we can count on is our libraries, our public institutions. Entonces voy a tomar un momento nomás para explicar por qué es tan importante este día. Porque esto representa un momento para nuestra comunidad que se siente libre de hacer el humano que uno es. para que uno no tenga miedo que les va a juzgar o les van a quitar los libros y que nadie en la comunidad les puede decir, tú no puedes leer eso. Aquí estamos juntos y unidos porque reconocemos que acceso a los libros, a las bibliotecas, es un recurso público para todos. Y eso necesita tener escuelas que tengan bibliotecas adentro. Que cada vecindario tenga acceso a bibliotecas en la noche. Y juntos vamos a llegar a esos momentos. So this is just a start. I look forward to continue advocating alongside all of our partners here, our students, our faith leaders, our local authors, our librarians, all of our community members and families. Please know that it is dependent on us to make sure that these public institutions are protected, but most importantly, receive the investments that they deserve. Thank you. At this moment, I have the pleasure of introducing Senator McKinney, a champion for libraries well before I was born.
I just wish we could get Rev Morales to come out of his shell. Be a little more enthusiastic. All of the elected officials, I think, have been thanked. I suppose I'm going to have to do it again. Governor, Speaker, Senate President, Mayor, we appreciate the leadership that it took to get this done. Rep. Morales was incredible. I will also echo Nicole McCarty, who happens to be a constituent of mine and a wonderful friend, helped to get this done. My many Senate co-sponsors and colleagues, but I also want to make sure that we touch upon a few of the community leaders who may not have had their names mentioned as of yet, and that includes Reverend Gene Kozlowski, and of course the Rhode Island Coalition, Nicole. Also Jeremy Langell from the Rhode Island Council of Churches. Library advocates who have just done incredible work to make this happen. I think of obviously Ed Garcia and Cheryl Space. Where did we lose Cheryl? Phenomenal. Aaron Kutu, who is head of my library in Warwick. The authors, Padma and Draven, I think I said that in the ballpark, and Jeanette Bradley, and any number of others. Regular citizens also, and library patrons got involved in this. I think there were, I don't know how many postcards that were sent. That makes a difference. I used to say when I chaired the state library board that we should remember that every legislator has a library in their district. And so the more noise that is made to that person, the better our prospects for passage of good legislation. It took us some time to get to where we are and achieve this victory. I could not be more grateful for where we are now. I'm especially glad that we can have the signing here at Rochambeau. My mom grew up in this neighborhood, lived on Cypress Street and around the corner on Rochambeau, down toward Kent Street, the Irish side in those days. I'm also just glad to be at a CLPVD library. I call Warwick Library my library, but I have much love for these Providence libraries that serve the neighborhoods that are so critical. And having been board member and president of CLPVD back when it was PCL, and having fought just to survive, to now see that all these libraries are thriving is wonderful. I mentioned my mom. She's been gone for about a dozen years, but she would have been 100 next month. And she came from a different generation, but she was very much an advocate for civil liberties. She would have been appalled to see what's happening in our country. Our public discourse, unfortunately, has grown more contentious, more polarized. Vulnerable communities have been not just ignored, but actually targeted. Government has been weaponized, and efforts have been made essentially to erase our history. I thought of that as I heard the Senate President talking about teaching history. Awfully hard to teach it when there's an effort going on actively to try to ignore what went on in the past. We've seen now the removal of hundreds of books from the library at the Naval Academy. Books on racism, Holocaust. Maya Angelou's I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings. These are books that I want those young people who are probably some of our future leaders, I want them to read those books. And sadly, we've had similar efforts that have occurred here in our state. I understand people feel passionately about their own perspective on things. But you know, in these times, it's becoming harder than ever to discern the authenticity and the accuracy of information. And when that happens, it leaves folks feeling disoriented, confused, and I think vulnerable. You know, it's up to each of us as individuals to choose how we respond to what I see as a crisis in this regard. Libraries and information obviously help us make those choices. You know, we in Rhode Island especially value independence. You know, up on top of the State House, we've got our independent man. In our state, an independent man or woman is free to decide what books he wants to check out from the library. And he's also free to decide what his children get to read. But as we've said any number of times, he doesn't get to decide what another adult gets to read, or that person's children. He has no right to do that. It's infringing on their freedoms. It's imperative that we protect the gift of reading with vigilance, with determination. When someone wants to take it away, whether by banning books directly or by launching lawsuits that are in effect an effort to intimidate librarians and schools and teachers and librarians because of a book that they happen to have on their shelf, we fight. Today we celebrate great victory for reading, for the core American ideal of free expression, but also the Rhode Island ideals of freedom and independence. So I want to thank everyone for their hard work and support. And I want to introduce Nicole Dyslewski.
Hi everyone, my name is Nicole Dyslewski and I am one of the leaders of the grassroots Rhode Island Freedom to Read Coalition. I'm also, in no specific order, a lawyer, a librarian, a law professor, my specialty is race and the law, an assistant dean at Roger Williams University School of Law, and a co-host of the fledgling podcast Law 401 Legal Issues Decoded. All that by way of saying, I am a huge law and library nerd. I had to decide if I was going to wear a book dress today. And I am having the best day of my life. I am in the presence of the governor's staff, the Speaker of the House, the Senate President, oh, hi, our Providence Mayor, these guys who know me all too well from many Zoom calls and phone calls, legislators who sponsored earlier versions of the bill, Rep. Stewart, members of legislative staff, other elected officials who are here somewhere, and members of the Rhode Island Freedom to Read Coalition. And we are doing this all on signing day at a local public library. Public libraries are the lifeblood of the community. Thank you, everyone, even if you weren't named today, for being here. Thank you for the work you have done to get us to this point. Thank you for everything that you have done to get to us as Rhode Island, the smallest state, passing a groundbreaking bill. And thank you for recognizing the importance of libraries, big and small. Libraries are the heart of the community, and I am so proud we have these leaders moving this community in this direction in this moment. And as one of the leaders of the Freedom to Read Coalition, I can say with absolute certainty that this new Freedom to Read law is an important moral statement. The passage of the bill and signing of this law sends the message that all stories have value. The voices and stories of all children, all library patrons, all immigrants, all moms, all LGBTQIA young adults, all members of faith communities, all artists, all people struggling with drug addiction or thoughts of self-harm, all writers and illustrators, historians, researchers, creators, and scholars have value. All of their voices have value. And this law affirms that you don't have to agree with someone to recognize the value in their story, or in their voice, or in their very humanity. The Rhode Island Freedom to Read Coalition believes that this is the lesson we all need to hear right now, in libraries, in schools, in publishing houses and homes, and in the State House. And today, Rhode Island is sending that message loud and clear. We have tirelessly advocated, we have educated the public. We have, some of us, designed logos, designed and created and written out postcards about the passage of this law to protect and affirm the free speech rights of authors and to uplift an individual's right to make their own decisions in what they read. Rallied to support librarians as professionals with ethics and standards. We have innovated in this work by codifying a private right of action to allow efficient redress at the state level when these important rights are not respected. That is to say, this law is not performative. What we're doing here is not for show. Rhode Island means business. This law, sponsored by these legislators and signed by this governor, is now a model for legislators and advocates and activists and librarians in other states who understand that access to the writings of any one of us is an expression of justice for all of us. Thank you, and can we please sign there?
Should I get the Freedom to Read Coalition behind them? I think that would be great.
And these young people too who testify. Arise. Yes, arise, yes.
Are you ready?
Yes.
Okay.
Smile.
Take her off.
Give the governor a hand here.
Cheryl.
What? Thank you.
And Rep, you can hold that. It's official at the moment. Still unofficial place. And then we're good to send it. Right behind.
Right behind.
Center.
Thank you.
There you go.
Appreciate it.
Yeah. Go sign that, and then Nicole. Nicole?
Yes.
That was very nice. I thought you did a great presentation.